All right, welcome back to Encyclopedia.zone. My name is Dr. Don Jolly. I am the editor-in-chief of Encyclopedia.zone. I'm also a freelance writer whose work has appeared in the Los Angeles Review of Books, Penthouse Magazine, among others, and I am feeling pretty fucking pissed off today. This is James Armstrong. Why don't you introduce yourself, James?
Hi, my name is James. I'm a former mild-mannered reporter for a small rural newspaper, all-around political junkie. Not much of a shit poster. I was telling Don I'm probably more of the Timothy Krause to his Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah, I'm not. I would not compare myself to the great HST, but I do appreciate the comparison. And we are here today to talk about the Iowa caucuses. Obviously, feelings are running high at the moment. We have a lot to say about it. We watched the caucus results last night, or I should actually amend that because we didn't actually see any fucking results.
No, we got nothing.
So yeah, let's just run through basically.
I made some good nachos and cornbread, but we had nothing to watch.
That was the nice thing is James made nachos, so I was able to eat nachos while I discovered that democracy, at least at the presidential level, is fucking dead. So at least I got some nachos. Feeling pretty good about that. Okay, so let's run through the basics of the story for people who may not be familiar. The Iowa caucuses were last night. This is the first primary contest in the 2020 Democratic presidential primary. Caucuses are kind of it's a very weird system. The caucus, basically, people get together in gymnasiums, big rooms, depending on their district.
Wherever they can go.
And this is administered by the Democratic Party. This isn't technically a federal election, if I'm correct. And you have to argue for your candidate. It's done by a head count, I believe, the voting, or do they do paper ballots?
That's a good question. They probably have different systems all around. That was the weird thing about last night, about how some areas had a 15% threshold to make it to the final count. Some had I think a 30 in some place, if I recall correctly. So it's just
I did see that.
Like there is no uniform set of rules, which is why this is so damn messy.
But because people have to vote in person, and you have to stay through the rounds of voting because a candidate has to get up to a 50%, sometimes a 30% threshold to be viable. So there are different rounds of voting. As candidates are knocked off, you have to go to your second choice, your third choice, or you have to just leave the caucus. And whoever is left standing at the end of this process gets the delegates that are up for awarding in Iowa, which is very small as a percentage of the total Democratic, the total delegates that are necessary to secure the Democratic nomination. I think there's over 2,000 delegates. I think there was less than 100 up for grabs in Iowa.
If that, man. I don't think it's that many at all. Like Iowa just has the bragging rights of being first.
Yeah, and that's kind of the design of Iowa, is that it's mostly, like a lot of things in presidential politics, it's about mass media. It's about creating a mass media narrative. It's about that quote-unquote momentum.
The big mo.
The big mo. I saw a lot of mo's on stage last night. The biggest mo of them all is Pete Buttigieg. And I'm not talking about his sexuality. I'm talking about the fact that he declared victory at midnight, despite the fact that no actual results from the caucus have, as of this recording, been released. Now, it came out last week that the Democratic Party in Iowa and in Nevada, although Nevada has said that they're no longer using it, was using a proprietary app that over the course of the night, it came out, was developed by a company staffed almost entirely by people who were involved in the Hillary Clinton 2016 campaign called Shadow Incorporated.
Subtle.
Yeah, subtle. And it was also this company was started with seed money from Pete Buttigieg. One of their founders has made pro-Buttigieg posts on social media. And, of course, so the Democrats claim, as the votes happened, as the caucuses occurred in Iowa, as the rounds of voting went through, they said that the app had crashed or that there had been some problem with the app.
Like a coding error.
There was a coding error. They said that they were retaining the results for quality control purposes, for the purposes of quality control, because you want to have high-quality votes. you got to have high quality votes. This is America. We only want the highest quality votes. We want the highest quality Trump steaks. We want Trump ice water. I'm drinking my Trump ice right now. We're all going to be drinking Trump ice in November because of what the fucking Democrats are up to right now. So you better get fucking ready. Anyway, they declined to release the results, saying there were errors with the app. Apparently,
but the best part was this line from the official press release from the Iowa Democratic Party saying, quote, "We have determined with certainty that the underlying data collected via the app was sound."
Yeah, what does that mean?
I guess it means that they say, we have all the votes, it's just that the app had a problem processing the final number. There was a coding error. But
There's a coding error.
But that does not sound right. That's definitely a fundamentals of the economy are strong type quote there.
Yeah, it's and of course, you know, the you can imagine the reaction of the mainstream press. Like, we're more than 18 hours from the caucuses now, still without results. People are saying that you shouldn't jump to conclusions. This is probably incompetence and not conspiracy. But, like, from my perspective, I don't know why you wouldn't come to a conspiratorial conclusion based on what has occurred here.
Like, it reminds me of something that would happen in Congress where, say, the speaker sees that they don't have the votes to pass something, and so they just pull the vote for another day. So the Iowa caucuses, in effect, got tabled, it feels like.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if the results... I mean, I see them talking about the numbers are essentially sound, which makes me think... You know, and I've seen a couple of reports like this. You know, and to just go back to what was happening last night a little more, apparently... precinct captains and the people who are leading the caucuses were trying to get the Democratic Party in Iowa on the phone. They weren't able to get through. The campaigns and the party had some kind of conference call that became contentious, so the party hung up on them. They called Bernie Sanders in to a private conference. This was reported last night. Who knows? But before the results were announced, and then all the candidates, Biden, Klobuchar, Warren, Bernie, they all just kind of gave milquetoast statements, completely ignoring the fact that the votes had not been released. And then around midnight, when James was very, very nicely giving me a ride home from our watch party, Pete Buttigieg came out and announced that he was victorious in Iowa, something that he is not answering press questions about now that he's in New Hampshire.
Did he actually say we shocked the world?
Yes, Iowa shocked the world. I mean, they did, but like not in the way that he's fucking talking about. So, okay, here we are. Like, I am plugged into, you know, I've said this before in private, and I'll say it in public now, but like I really think that we are seeing a repetition in a lot of ways of 2016 this year. It doesn't look like 2016 did because the nature of the meme culture is different. When I say a repetition of 2016, I say that we are seeing the internet go up against the mass media in a major way. But in this case, I think the candidate with the internet energy behind them is Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders memes do not look like Trump memes. They're generally not as funny. They're going for there's a different set of aesthetics to it. But like I'm very plugged into the Bernie Sanders Twitter world at the moment because I find it to be a very interesting electronic media phenomenon. And so just coming out of that, I'm seeing precinct captains and people that were on the ground. Like, we were watching Status Coup last night. They were talking to voters in Iowa saying that Bernie Sanders was doing very well in the caucuses. And this is, like, if you want to go with the conspiratorial narrative, they
said he was doing well. They also said that a lot of voters who didn't make the threshold were going to Buttigieg.
I mean, I think that, like... Yeah. There were some numbers that filtered out to the New York Times, for example, like as the night was going on, that did show Buttigieg doing well.
But a lot of exit polling data showing him not doing so well. Mm-hmm. So it's
we don't know. And how can you trust it with him financially involved in the fucking app? You can't. But so the conspiratorial narrative, if you want to go with it, is that Bernie did very, very well in the primary, and perhaps just as important, we heard multiple reports that in at least several caucus locations, because we can't talk about the state as a whole, because once again, the Democratic Party has not released the numbers. But
and even then, like they said they'll release half of them.
Yeah, they released half of them today, and then the Biden campaign threatened to throw an injunction on them, according to a report on CNN. I mean, this is a developing news situation, developing shit show. I mean, what do you want to call it? I don't know. But the numbers that we were seeing is perhaps as important as...
Call it a caucus cock-up.
Caucus cock-up. Yeah, I was thinking about calling the video Iowa Cocked Us. Like C-O-C-K-E-D, cocked. Anyway, but perhaps as important as the, once again, anecdotal... although the Bernie Sanders campaign did release their internal numbers with 40% of precincts reporting showing Bernie Sanders winning with Pete Buttigieg at a very strong second.
Okay. What was the margin?
I don't know the margin off the top of my head, but they were within a couple hundred votes of each other.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and they were both like over 1,000 individual votes. Also, like, Bernie Twitter is talking about Buttigieg winning a bunch of like sketchy coin tosses. I mean, we won't really get into that. But
to his credit, Bernie had a statement saying that he's not going to declare a victory. There are no numbers. So good on him for being responsible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little disappointed in how responsible Bernie is being, honestly.
You were very angry that he didn't call out the Democrats during his
He should have called out the fucking Democrats. Because, like, look, if... The conspiratorial narrative, and I hate to call it that because I think it's actually kind of the common sense narrative at this point, is that Bernie overperformed, and perhaps just as important, Biden underperformed, because we saw multiple reports. And once again, like, I want to say that I'm getting these from Bernie Twitter, so take it with the grain of salt. But that Biden was performing in certain caucus locations under the threshold of viability.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it doesn't just come from Twitter. It comes from people who are actually at the caucuses, who are actually caucusing. And yeah, they said Biden was either polling at the fourth place or, yeah, like you said, not placing at all. So these are actual people on the ground, in the gymnasiums, if I can be corny, doing their civic duty in the corny state of Iowa, saying that Biden was underperforming.
And, so... Like, what is the motivation here on the part of the party? I mean, this is a massive fucking foul up. I, for one, do not believe at all that this is just some kind of error. Like, I know that what did you do before the fucking app? Like, why aren't they taking phone calls on the night of? Why did the Des Moines Register not release its poll on the day of the fucking primary? Which the Des Moines Register poll is like a big deal in political circles. It's seen as a very trustworthy bellwether of fucking political performance in this important early primary state. They did not release it. And once again, the rumor is that poll showed Bernie overperforming and Biden disastrously underperforming. So, the Bernie Sanders people since 2016 have been convinced that the party is dead set against them. And I think that there's a lot of evidence for that. It's not a conspiracy theory. You had the chief financial officer of the Democratic National Committee in 2016 talking about using Bernie's supposed atheism as a tool to discredit him. You had Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the DNC chair, talking about how Bernie was never going to be president. This is all in 2015. This is before primaries had even started. And you also have the Democratic Party, you have evidence from this year, like John Kerry gets caught talking on a phone about how freaked out he is that Bernie Sanders is going to destroy the Democratic Party, and how necessary it is to stop him. You've got Hillary Clinton talking to a Hollywood Reporter about, how nobody likes Bernie and he's this, disaster for the party waiting to happen. She's talking shit about him on Howard Stern. Like, Hillary Clinton is doing this
She went on Howard Stern?
Yeah, she was on Howard Stern in December. Yeah. No, she's doing a whole media push, and we'll talk about that soon in HRC 2020 Part 2. But, so the party being arrayed against Bernie is not a new thing, but the party essentially canceling a caucus to prevent Bernie from getting this media momentum seems to me to be a pretty unprecedented act in the history of American presidential politics.
Like, I was trying to think of any other time where Iowa had some kind of screw up, and it wasn't as bad, obviously, but I can recall in 2012, they had thought that Mitt Romney had barely won Iowa, and then they did a little bit of recounting about a week later, and it turns out Rick Santorum had etched out a very slim win over him. So the narrative going into New Hampshire for Romney was, hey, I want an upset victory in Iowa. It's a very conservative state, and I'm the front runner. Whereas if all the votes had been counted accurately more quickly, then it would have been, no, this guy Rick Santorum won a very slim upset victory, and you're on shaky ground here. That was the only mess up in recent memory I could think of, but it's like just a pinprick compared to this slasher wound
yeah,
of a caucus we've just had.
So what is the? I mean, obviously this is going to exacerbate the tensions that are already in the Democratic Party between the Bernie base.
I was telling you, Bernie could have swept the table and won Iowa. He's always been the front runner in New Hampshire.
Yep.
There was a poll that came out just before Iowa showing Bernie within 5 points of Biden. Now, I haven't heard of this group before. They're called Change Research. They're a relatively new outfit founded in 2017. Just going off their website, from what little I read about them, they claim to be very accurate. But if you're a polling outfit, why would you say otherwise?
We should start a polling outfit. We're like, we just make it up. It's bullshit. Joe Biden up 50 points in Texas. Joe Biden 90% of the vote.
Yeah. Like they had Bernie within 7 points back in December, but to their credit, other polling outfits had similar numbers to their January poll, the late January poll showing Tom Steyer etching up in South Carolina along with Warren and Biden. But the only difference is other polls have Biden hovering at 35-ish points in South Carolina, whereas they have him more at 25. Yeah. So but the thing about primaries, and I always hate when they use national numbers because there is no national primary. These national numbers don't mean anything, but it's all about the big mo, going back to that term. So Bernie could have won Iowa, won New Hampshire, and then with that momentum, gone in and just taken South Carolina, and then suddenly he's on to Super Tuesday with all the momentum in the world.
Right, exactly.
And now they just canceled Iowa.
Well, that's what I think the Bernie campaign was anticipating. I mean, I've talked to quite a few Bernie people, and I think that the expectation was, everybody was a little bit nervous about interference from the party. But I think, and this is the thing that I was saying yesterday, because I've been doing a lot of research into what happened in 2016, and I do have to say that as much as the DNC did put their fingers on the scales, they didn't seem to be particularly effective at it, especially because Bernie Sanders did so well in the fundraising game, and he's doing even better this year. Bernie Sanders has the most numbers of small dollar donations that we've ever seen in an American presidential election, primary election, at least according to
better than Obama in 08?
Yeah, okay. Actually, with a lower average donation. It's actually even a lower average donation this year than it was in 16. His fundraising numbers are at the top of the field. He's out fundraising people that are actually doing the whole super PAC thing and taking in big corporate donations, big dollar donations. He's outperforming these people on the basis of individual donations with a average donation amount of $18, which the thing that is competitive about this kind of small dollar donation strategy is that these people are not reaching their maximum federally allowed donation amount, which is $2,800. It's somewhere in there for individual donations.
Yeah, it's always hard to remember since the campaign finance laws have been just pretty much tossed to the wayside. But I want to say $2,500.
It's somewhere around
typically
there. But the Bernie people, because they're contributing small amounts in aggregate, and once again, this is a strategy that could not have existed without the internet. This is an internet-based electoral strategy, which is another repetition of what I'm seeing of what I saw in 2016, which was the old school, old 20th century legacy media machine going up against the new media machine that you see coming out of the internet. The Bernie campaign actually like makes it, because Trump had internet support that basically just countered the ridiculously negative coverage that he got and continues to get in mainstream media, which I think is actually having the opposite effect. If the mainstream media sees itself as in some way damaging Trump, it's like, I think it's actually had the opposite effect because trust in media is so low.
Well, especially
people
for
hate these people.
Republicans, if like the more that I've always said the media is probably Trump's biggest ally, because the more they attack Donald Trump, the more your average Republican voter who could care less about the New York Times, NBC, CBS, all the big networks, the more that they attack him, the more strength he gets among Republican voters, which was reflected in that Gallup poll that people were talking about.
Yeah,
this morning.
like, and that's the other thing. It's Wednesday, the 4th of February. Like the impeachment proceedings are set to end today. We've got the State of the Union, and Trump is Tuesday, February 4th. What did I say? Wednesday. Wednesday. Sorry. Tuesday. But
to be fair, it was weird that Iowa voted on a Monday.
Yeah, right. The primary days are usually Tuesday. Yeah. But Trump had just posted the highest approval rating he's had since he got elected.
Yeah.
49%.
49%.
Which is, like, for a president who has been impeached, pretty fucking good. But essentially what I'm saying is that the new media versus old media aspect of 2016 was almost entirely about media messaging. And what Bernie does, and what Bernie did in 2008 in addition, was he's taking that new media versus old media aspect and applying it to political fundraising, which is very fucking interesting and should be something that no matter what your political persuasion, you are invested in. Because if we can raise money, like if you could raise money for a political campaign with, just this internet infrastructure, which is much cheaper to maintain than the sort of traditional party politics that we're used to seeing in the 20th century, like this is a possibility to basically make the king-making power of political parties largely irrelevant. Like if you are able to like go to people directly, and I'm not saying that this is like 100% going to be like a beautiful explosion of democracy, because it's like you're essentially going to the masses directly and soliciting them for cash. If you could do that, you can build, and if you could do that successfully and get enough money to be competitive in the political arena with this donation strategy, you're not dependent on corporate interests, you're not dependent on lobbyists in the same way, and you're not dependent on party infrastructure in the same way. So there is something very, I think, interesting and subversive about the way that Bernie Sanders raises money. And I think the thing the Bernie Sanders people were expecting, like there was a lot of excitement in that sphere because the polls were showing Bernie up. I think the expectation was, he's always been up in New Hampshire. He just recently ticked ahead of Biden in Iowa. I think anybody who is watching Biden's campaign with any close scrutiny would say that it's not doing what it needs to do. Like there's an expectation that Biden was going to collapse. And the idea is that Bernie would charge through these early primary states, maybe not South Carolina, but definitely Iowa, New Hampshire, and have the momentum going into Super Tuesday where you've got the Democratic establishment basically, like, because that's the other thing.
I think he had also taken a lead in California.
Yes, he has a lead in California. Yeah. And that's been substantial, and it's been for a while. So there's an expectation that he'll do well in Super Tuesday, but that he'll also, like, the big problem that Bernie has been having, if you want to call it a problem, is that, Trump in 2016 got tons of media coverage. I think you're absolutely right to call the media his best friend, because they want to constantly tell you how bad this guy is, and they could get story after story after story out of it.
All he had to do is say it, just tweet something.
Yeah.
And because the media feeds on dead bodies, car crashes, and outrage, he just got the outrage coverage, and no one else had any breathing room to move up in the primary campaign.
Yeah, and the Bernie had the opposite relationship with the media in the last year, which is that they just did not report on him, or when they did report on him, it was clipped and brusque, and they basically did not take him seriously as a candidate. I mean, you could go into, compilations of MSNBC being dismissive or CNN being dismissive. I just saw Chris Matthews, like the hardball guy, saying that he didn't believe that Bernie Sanders, like if you had a heart attack, he didn't believe that Bernie Sanders would stop his car to help you.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't make any fucking sense, but it's like, look, Alan Dershowitz called him an anti-Semite because he's insufficiently supportive of Israel. He got on CNN to say that shit, or he got on the Larry King show to say that shit. Larry King's not on CNN anymore, but basically, like, the media has been underreporting Bernie. This has been, attention that his campaign has been experiencing for the last year. And the idea was, you do well in Iowa, you do well in New Hampshire, they're not going to be able to ignore this anymore. And you did see that as he ticked up in Iowa. You started to see things like op-eds in the New York Times talking about how you need to take Bernie Sanders seriously. I think it was the New Yorker, it might have been the New York Times, just put out a piece last week called Bernie Sanders, the Democratic Frontrunner. And it was those kind of pieces that the Bernie people were counting on getting out of Iowa, out of New Hampshire, maybe out of South Carolina, so that he goes into Super Tuesday, with his head held high as the presumptive nominee, facing a bunch of establishment Democratic candidates, which is, Bernie Sanders has been an independent most of his political life. He's not a party guy in the Democratic National,
Only became a Democrat a couple years ago.
He only became a Democrat a couple of years ago. He does represent a new form of the Democratic Party, or something that could conceivably split out of the Democratic Party and become its own thing, this democratic socialist thing, and the DSA is obviously stretching its organizational muscles in congressional races all across the country. It's doing relatively well for itself. It's definitely good at grabbing headlines. And so you've got an establishment field, Pete Buttigieg, the official CIA sock puppet candidate. You got Joe Biden, a confused old man who likes black children to touch his hair. And you've got Elizabeth Warren. That's all I'm going to say about that. Amy Klobuchar, Human Shrek. You basically got all these. You got all these establishment people splitting the vote for the people that are sort of like the centrist Democrats who are being swayed by. I don't even know if it's correct to call them centrist, but the people who are like kind of plugged in to mass media narratives, who like really think that the most important thing is this quote unquote electability. And their vote is split essentially now. I mean, 4 ways. Am I being fair in including Klobuchar in that? Is it 3 ways or 4 ways? Yeah.
She was once talked about to be the Biden alternative before Buttigieg went up in the polling, and a lane that is now being gone after by Mike Bloomberg.
Yeah, no, we got Bloomberg too. I mean, that's a whole nother fucking kettle of fish. Yeah, billionaire Mike Bloomberg, of course, I saw CNN saying, oh, this is a great night for Mike Bloomberg because he's got organizational experience. Like, we literally have a fucking oligarch just like pumping tons and tons of money into the presidential race right now. I don't even know if he's doing it because he wants to be president. I have some theories about the Bloomberg thing, because he's actually driving up the cost of political advertisements across the board, soaking up talent. Yeah.
We were talking about that last night, and to Elizabeth Warren's credit, I like that she's done so much of her advertising in-house and has not hired the usual Democratic operatives to make her campaign advertisements or run political polling. It was a nice way of taking money away from those Democratic Party operatives. So my theory about Bloomberg was, these poor Democratic permanent campaign workers weren't getting a steady paycheck. So here's Mike Bloomberg doing his little welfare for campaign operatives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he's promised them paychecks through November, whether he gets the nom or not. So he's soaking up fucking political apparatchiks from the Democratic Party, and he's buying, like, he's made the biggest ad buys in American presidential history already. He just doubled his advertising budget in the aftermath of Iowa, I saw this morning. And he's driving up the cost for television advertisements in every major media market in the country, 2-3 times what a spot would traditionally cost.
That's a good thing about football season being over. I won't be watching TV, and I won't be interrupted by Mike Bloomberg ads anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I see Mike Bloomberg ads when I watch shit on I watch YouTube on my iPad, and I see a Mike Bloomberg ad every fucking time, and every time it gets worse.
Gotta get an ad blocker, man.
Yeah, well, can you get an ad blocker on the fucking iPad? I mean, it's a fucking surveillance device. I don't know. But you know, the fucking I do like, I like seeing the Bloomberg ads at least a little bit. Because I like to keep an eye on this fucking shithead, and you know it is the most vacuous. I mean, actually, like, is it the most vacuous? I think Pete Buttigieg has the most vacuous campaign rhetoric. Maybe Klobuchar, because I mean, Klobuchar's whole thing is like, I'm from the Midwest, and that's why you should vote for me. I'm a, you know, she's doing the folksy politician thing. I just detest it.
Well, I'll take folksy over another East Coast politician.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So let's say, like, okay, where do we go from here? What's your initial reaction, like, after Iowa?
Biden got a lifeline. Yeah. Biden got a lifeline. Now the expectation is Bernie's going to win New Hampshire like it was always assumed he would. Biden, I think, going into this mess, was still polling second in New Hampshire. Kind of the same deal. I think Buttigieg was up for a while. Warren and him were kind of back and forth for third place. But I think this preserves Biden's South Carolina firewall. So I have not seen any polling from Texas, but I guess on our end it's going to be a little exciting because I think the Texas primary is actually going to matter.
Yeah,
so I feel good about that.
That will be a nice thing, and of course we've got a lot of delegates up for play in Texas. Fuck, man. I mean, the question is, like,
might get some actual campaign rallies here.
I mean, that would be interesting. Yeah. I'd like to go report on some campaign rallies. But how can you trust any of it now? Isn't this like a breach of confidence? Because it's so bold. Like, this whole thing is so bold. Whether it's fucking mismanagement or it's conspiracy, this is such a big public fuck you directly to the voters. Like, how can you take this process seriously at this point? And I think this is a very big problem. Yeah, I mean, what's your read on that?
There are multiple ways that this can go. Iowa was already getting bad press going into this. People were saying this caucus doesn't matter, it's outdated, outmoded, and it wouldn't be the first time that a Iowa-related tradition has just crumbled. This is now the second election cycle where there was no Iowa state fair straw poll, because the Republicans wanted to do away with that, because in 2012 you had the candidate like Tim Pawlenty, the more mainstream governor, possible alternative to Mitt Romney, tanking that straw poll, and then he dropped out. A lot of Republicans thought he could have been the best Romney alternative for that cycle, so they said we shouldn't be investing so much in a straw poll that involves on just such a non-scientific, immeasurable method of picking a candidate, so they did away with that. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Nevada tried to move in on Iowa's spot and become the first in the nation caucus. I don't think it's as simple as Iowa's switching to a primary, because then New Hampshire would want to move up. They always want to be first.
Yeah.
So I don't want a repeat of 08, where so many states were moving forward. There was a point where New Hampshire thought about holding their primary in like late December of 2007.
No shit.
Yeah, that became a thing for a while. They were threatening to do that because Michigan was moving up, Florida was moving up. But I would say look for Nevada to try to move in on Iowa's action. They get some good press because they say they're a more diverse state with a large Hispanic population. We saw exit polling data last night. Only 8% of voters were non-white.
Yeah.
Just spitballing ideas here. One thing I was talking up that came to mind this morning was Iowa could try a different system where they try what Maine is experimenting with and go with
the ranked choice
voting.
Yeah,
ranked choice voting, where if you're not familiar with the concept, when you vote, you pick your first, second, and third choice, and then if no one crosses the 50% threshold, then your second choice becomes your vote. That was tested out in Maine, where they had a congressional race last year where the Republican got 46%, the Democrat 45%. All those who voted third party had their votes, second choice votes moved up, and it ended up going to the Democrat 50% to 49%, give or take a few percentage marks. That would not be a bad idea for a primary campaign, because they'll still release the first round.
Yeah.
So, say hypothetically, we would see Sanders at, 35%, Biden at 32%, everyone else in the 20s. These are not based on polling, so this is me spitballing random numbers.
Yeah.
And so you could then move to your second choice, and then you could say, Bernie wins 52%, Biden 48%. That is not a bad idea for a primary, because it shows where voters would shift should their first choice not make it. So it still abides by the concept of a caucus, where you don't have candidates reach a certain threshold and you move on to your second choice.
Yeah.
That again, is the closest match I can see to the Iowa caucus system, while still avoiding the possibility of them cocking everything up.
Yeah, I mean, is this kind of rigging or error or whatever we saw last night, is this something that is tied up with the caucus system?
I almost feel like that it was the Democrats going into that or buying into this idea that, if we have an app for something, that'll just make it better.
Yeah,
it's like we just used too much technology for something that's relatively simple. You go into a gym, you just need a sheet of paper, you write down your damn numbers, call it a day. You don't need to just overcomplicate something as simple as counting votes.
But that the reason that they say they're doing the app is because of this paranoid Russia narrative. It was supposed to be
let the Red Scare take over.
Yeah, let the Red Scare take over. The only Red Scare I support is Dasha and Anna. Anna, call me. Call me, Anna. I don't know. Okay, I can't make jokes right now. I'm so fucking pissed off. But
I think the highlight of the night, as far as jokes can go, is I was giving you shit for going out for a cigarette, because cigarettes are such a bad habit. And on your way out the door, I said, "It's a bad habit, Don." And you said, "Politics? Yeah, it is a bad habit."
Yeah, it is. It is a bad habit. Now, I mean, this is the big problem that I see coming out of Iowa is like, I knew that the Democratic Party was arranged against Bernie. I knew that the media was arranged against Bernie. I mean, I knew all this stuff. But I said, look, okay, they got this fucking proprietary app. They're going to do something shady with it. I thought, you move a couple of votes around, you pump up Buttigieg's numbers, you try to produce what Chuck Todd was talking about on NBC's broadcast.
You wait for the dead and the cattle to vote.
Exactly. You get all the cows, you get all the corpses, you do the Mayor Daley strategy, and you engineer a Goldilocks candidate. That's what they want to create, is this like perfect, moderate, centrist, establishment Democrat that can stand up to fucking Bernie, stand up to his fundraising numbers and stand up to his showing in the polls. I thought that's what they would do. I thought it would be something, if it happened at all, it would happen behind the scenes in a way that we wouldn't find out about for years. And what I said is like, they're evil, but they're stupid. And this is kind of like the maximum that they could get away with. Something like canceling the primary, not releasing the results, is so far beyond the pale of what has happened within Democratic primary politics, or just primary politics in general within my lifetime. This really feels like a watershed moment for the relationship of those idealistic, Bernie Sanders, DSA, people who already are negatively disposed towards the Democratic Party. How are they going to trust this process ever again? how are they going to trust New Hampshire? How are they going to trust South Carolina? More importantly, how are they going to trust that Bernie can lose anything? Even if he does legitimately lose, because that's the other thing we're seeing from exit polling. Turnout was about what it was in 2016, relatively depressed turnout.
They matched their number for 2016, 170,000 people turned out. They did not meet their, I wouldn't call it a goal, but they thought they would hit the 240,000 record that they did in 08.
Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, it's like American presidential politics. It's not, Bernie is running a very policy-based campaign. And a lot of people are very invested in those policies. They think those policies are a really good idea. I agree with most of them.
I'm not committed to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going a little McGovern, that Hunter Thompson did.
I wanted to bring that up because last night you were getting excited at the prospect of a Bernie victory, and you were saying that this had a McCarthy, New Hampshire, 1968 feeling. Now, historically, after 1968, so many people were ticked off at what happened in Chicago that's when George McGovern and others started to change up the nominating system, and that's when primaries actually
that's when they actually started to matter.
So yeah, I would not be surprised if after all this we get another look at the nominating system, and obviously it's up to each party to decide how they nominate their candidates. But I'd be curious what big changes come in store, because something has got to.
Oh yeah, something's got to change, and I think the narrative
probably as radical as what happened between 68 and 72.
Yeah, and we should talk about that a little bit for people that don't know. In 1968, Lyndon Johnson was running for re-election. The New Hampshire primary happened, and he was very nearly beaten by a Catholic senator named Eugene McCarthy, who was basically running entirely, at this point, on a platform of protest against the Vietnam War. McCarthy performed so well in New Hampshire, it kind of created this whole movement that culminated in the very chaotic Democratic Convention of 1968, about which more later. But it started a movement that led to a major reevaluation of the Democratic Party's primary system. Like in 1968, only about a third. I mean, that's me talking out of my ass, like off the top of my head. But a minority of delegates for the convention, because the presidential candidates are chosen by vote of delegates at the annual conventions. A minority of the delegates were determined by actual primaries. Yeah. Most delegates were what we call today super delegates. Or
I'm not even sure if Hubert Humphrey won a single primary that
no,
year.
Because he ran a really good game in the back rooms in the non-primary states. Eugene McCarthy did not even compete in the non-primary states, because I think as much as he started taking his run more seriously after New Hampshire, when he placed as well as he did against what was at that time a sitting president. LBJ in March of that year would decline from seeking the Democratic nomination. Very interesting political stunt. But he performed so well against sitting president, he started to take his run more seriously. But he never was a traditional campaigner. He didn't do the ghetto tours. He didn't shake people's hands. He was palling around with Robert Lowell. Is hanging out with poets, and he did not campaign at all in the back rooms. He campaigned entirely in the primaries, which at the time was not a winning strategy. He just assumed that, I guess if he was serious about winning at all, which, we could evaluate that, I suppose, but he assumed that the Democratic Party would go along with the will of the voters as they expressed it. And which is I think there's a necessity that this will lead to some type of at least superficial reform within the Democratic Party. I mean, people are already talking about, I think the most basic thing is get rid of Iowa as the first voting state, switch Iowa to a primary, do something to Iowa, blame it on Iowa. But I think that there's a need or there will be a call and a desire for larger, more systematic change. And I'm not sure exactly what form that takes, because at the moment, the majority of delegates are determined by primary vote in the Democratic Party. We actually had a rules change that was pushed through in 2018 in the aftermath of what happened with Bernie Sanders and the 2016 campaign, that the superdelegates can't vote in the first round of the convention, which essentially just makes them a tiebreaker element in the case of a brokered convention where you have nobody has enough delegates to actually carry the convention on the first vote. So that's where the superdelegates would come in. And superdelegates are like party officials, members of Congress, basically people that are not. They can vote for the nominee without actually interfacing with voters at all. And there has been some chatter, because Bernie has been doing so well, that they want to reverse that 2018 decision and make it so that the superdelegates can vote on the first round of voting. This would once again anticipate a brokered convention. But I don't know if I can't think of a reform that would be possible that would satisfy the people that are feeling very angry and rightly displaced by what happened last night.
I'll say I'm very high on ranked choice voting, because I think on one hand, brief interlude, I can recall one of my favorite phrases of all time was way back in college, where we were talking about 9/11, and my professor said there are two schools of thought if you want to get into that, which is the conspiracy take on 9/11 and all that crap, and then one of my favorite words I've ever heard, the government incompetence theory.
The government incompetence.
I'm a big fan of that phrase, the government incompetence theory.
So would this be are you in favor of the Democratic Party incompetence theory as it pertains to Iowa?
I don't know, because I'm a level-headed guy, I would like to say, but this whole thing is fishy. They just tabled a caucus because of a technical glitch. And it's even worse for the Democrats, because they're the party that's always been talking up the idea of having a paper ballot, having a paper trail, the sanctity of your vote, and where's their backup?
Yeah, this to me, this is a discrediting event.
Yeah, well,
for the Democratic Party.
But I was going to say, on the incompetence theory train of thought, which is kind of going in and out of my head right now. I think that as far as moving ahead in the future, mistakes can happen, and I guess if I had to put, I don't want to say a positive spin on it, but sometimes things do break down. If I do want to go with the incompetence theory over the conspiracy theory, and there is a maybe inherent problem that we demand instant gratification from our elections, because throughout history there have been times where we've had to wait months for election returns to occur. Like way back when we were founded, the Electoral College would meet months apart to pick a president. Obviously, they didn't have the types of communication systems that we have right now.
Yeah.
There would be votes that had to be recounted by paper, and it would take a few weeks. We do demand instant gratification. This can be a curse and a blessing. It's a curse because you get rushed into a perception whereby if it's a close election, the person you think is going to win on election night actually, upon a recount, has lost.
Yeah.
That being said, I again think ranked choice would alleviate a lot of these problems, because you can have your first round counted, by machine if need be, by paper as a backup, and then if there is no one reaching 50%, which is a very important number. I like the idea of someone getting a majority of the vote. I like voting third party when I feel like it, but that being said, it doesn't feel right if your candidate only wins with 40% of the vote or 46% of the vote. I like for someone to go in with at least some kind of mandate of a majority of the vote, so at least we have some shared responsibility among voters when we look back at the people we put in office.
Yeah. I mean, I just wonder, I like ranked choice voting. I actually like ranked choice voting for more than just the primary system. But it seems to me that a lot of the thing that powers, our democracy, especially at the federal level, is you have to be able to sell this belief that when you vote, you are exercising power, that you have some form of control, and things like tonight, like I don't know if these Bernie people who went into this night with so much excitement and enthusiasm, I don't know if they are ever going to feel like they are empowered through the electoral process again. I hope that that's not true. I hope that this is not, a terribly destructive event for American democracy. But at the same time, like, I'm very cynical about the power and the level of control that American democracy actually does offer voters. And all of my worst and most cynical opinions on this seem to have been confirmed by the events in Iowa. And the thing about the Bernie Sanders thing is, like, there's a caricature of his supporters that they're all young, and a lot of them are, especially people that are doing organizing for him, stuff like that. The majority of his fundraising comes from retired people. I just saw that on the FEC website. You've got a coalition of people that essentially, like, this is a thing that makes it very similar to Eugene McCarthy. This is an idealistic movement. This is a group of people saying, we are going to choose to believe in the better angels of our nature. You might not agree with Bernie. You might not trust Bernie. I'm not asking you to. I'm just saying that the people who support him, whether they are right in thinking this way or not, are idealistic people that are putting their faith in the electoral system. And there is nothing more dangerous than disappointing idealism. And in making idealism feel like it is foolish. Because this produces a level of rage and anger that I think is very difficult to predict and very difficult to control.
There's a beautiful George Carlin quote, which goes something along the lines of, scratch a cynic and you'll find a dissatisfied idealist.
Exactly.
Something along those lines.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what I'm really worried about coming out of Iowa, is like, I knew that the party was stupid, and I knew that they were, they would try to stop Bernie if they could. We still don't know exactly what happened, but the narrative that is developing, and the narrative that, whether it's true or not, or whether it's partially true, or it's like true with a couple of asterisks, is that Bernie Sanders won Iowa with a large mandate, and rather than let him have it, the party killed the caucus. This is not a non-event. This is not a thing that will be just subsumed in the news cycle. Although,
but Bernie is not out of it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, what is it now? If we can't trust if these people can't trust the voting, like, if they can't trust the primary process, if they think, like, oh, I'm going to go out.
It's not a primary. I mean, like, it's a lot more complicated than a primary. It's not just a simple method of showing up and casting a ballot. There's, like, actual discussion involved. There's actually, I mean, if you go to the, my most idealistic point, which I don't often have, it's actually a very beautiful thing. You go into a public place, you have to actually argue for your candidate. People actually talk to each other, for better or worse.
Yeah. You're talking about the caucus process.
Exactly.
Yeah. So which is one thing too. People talk about the turnout being suppressed. I think that might have to do. Like, I don't know if we could say that that's going to be depressed voter turnout across the board, because the caucuses are, such a, like, it's a time commitment.
Yeah.
It's a time commitment to go in and caucus.
I like
but
people.
What I'm saying though is, how can you take any, whether it's a caucus or a primary, like, how can you take anything that the Democratic Party is administering seriously now? Because
you shouldn't.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't. But that's what I'm saying is, like, this is a fatal fucking blow, potentially, to the idealism of the Bernie Sanders movement, or at least the ability of the Bernie Sanders movement to interface with the Democratic Party as a whole.
Trying to get my thoughts together.
I'm not saying that this is necessarily so. I'm saying that this has the potential to be, like, an extremely cynical and destructive moment in American politics.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I can't stress enough, actual voting results got tabled.
Yes.
This shouldn't happen. As far as it being a destructive event. I don't know, because the tone that I got from a lot of news stories going into this was that people are already calling the Iowa caucuses outdated and outmoded.
Yeah,
So-
as of last week,
Yeah,
I saw
yeah, so-
Jennifer Rubin in the Washington
Yeah.
Post had a thing that she did last year. She was talking about how central the Iowa caucuses are to the process. Big picture of Beto O'Rourke, and then last week she had a piece. Who needs the Iowa caucuses anyway?
Yeah.
Now that Bernie's up, fuck you, Jennifer Rubin. Anyway, you were saying.
Well, I would say yeah, it's a destructive level event, but it's not like something good can't come out of it. And yeah,
That's
we're-
true,
Yeah,
that's
we're- yeah.
true.
So yeah, I mean, and I said, yeah, don't trust don't trust the numbers. I mean, that's just me not trusting the two major parties in general.
Yeah.
But the nominating process is going to change, and yeah, hopefully Iowa just drifts into, I don't want to say obscurity, but hopefully Nevada moves up a little bit. They change their methodology of voting. People in the past have talked about other alternatives like a regional primary, maybe all the Northeast votes and then all the Southeast votes.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, but at the
You can have all of the, you were taking a shot at Amy Klobuchar earlier in her folksy Midwestern demeanor. Maybe all of the Midwest votes at the same time. So we have to campaign in Minnesota, Michigan,
okay,
Ohio.
so we have the Northeast. That would be the pencil neck dweeb primary. We got the Midwest, which is the big fat asshole primary. We got the South, racist dipshits. Yeah, so we could just divide the country up based
Southwest
on.
is the best.
Yeah, the Southwest is acid casualty primary. I don't know, what is the Southwest? Anyway, the
Chips and salsa.
chips and salsa primary. Yeah, I mean, I live in the Southwest, so I can't be too mean to it.
No, don't be mean.
But
I mean, we're better than the rest of the country, and we know it.
yeah, I don't know. Every part of the country has its own chauvinism.
It's healthy.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, this is you got to have a little friendly competition,
Exactly.
I suppose. The thing that I really wonder, beyond what changes this could bring to the Democratic nominating process, is I mean, first of all, in the immediate short term, I don't see how the Democratic Party can pick itself up from this and pose a threat to Trump.
No.
And it's not just about the primary, it's also about impeachment, eating shit. It's about Trump being up in the Gallup polls after impeachment. I mean, Trump is a fucking media machine. He dominates the narratives of political discourse. Everybody just reacts to him.
Yeah. I've talked a lot about ranked voting. Obviously, third parties played a role in 2016.
Yeah.
You had the Libertarian Party go from 1% to 3%. You had an uptick in the Green Party votes. The danger about Trump hitting 49% is that he got only just about 46%, technically 45.8 in 16.
Yeah.
The danger of him getting to 49% is it's gotten to a point where the media has bashed him so much so that he has a 95% approval rating among Republicans.
Right.
And now you could have all those other
And that
voters.
90
But all those voters who went Libertarian, or those 500,000 people who went for Evan McMullen
Yeah.
in 2016, let's say hypothetically, and a lot of people who vote third party always vote Libertarian or won't show up to the polls to vote for a major party. Let's say hypothetically Trump gets a good chunk, 75% of those votes. I think even if you gave Hillary a chunk of the Green Party vote, it would practically be a tie in the popular vote.
Yeah.
And imagine Trump not just winning re-election in 2016, imagine him also carrying the popular vote along with it.
I mean, and then it would give him the mandate that
Yeah.
he's acting like he got the first time around. I mean,
Yeah.
I think this is disastrous for their the Democrats' chances in the fall. But I also don't think that the people who sabotaged this primary, whether through ignorance or
Incompetence.
perfidiousness, I think they would rather have Trump than Bernie.
The big money people, yeah, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's like Trump says, it's like, what are you going to do? You're going to vote for the guy who's going to tax you? Come on. And there you go. Donald Trump, 4 more years of Trump. 400 more years of Trump. God Emperor Trump. Giant golden Trump statue on the moon. There you go. I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I want to say I'm not that pissed off about that concept. I am. Yeah. No, I want things to be shaken up. I want the power of the parties to be broken. And if there is any gold, like silver lining that's coming out of this, it's maybe this is the moment where people start to break from the because I don't think the Republican Party could survive Trump. Like, even if Trump, because that 95% approval rating, that's a reactionary approval rating.
Oh yeah.
That's people that are saying, like, you expect me to hate Trump, you're telling me to hate Trump, fuck you, MAGA bitch. That's a fucking, it's a reaction. The party, I don't think, is going to be able to survive one administration or two administrations of Trump. Like, I think as a national force, who do they have that could step up after Donald Trump?
I think Trump wins 2020, Democrats win 2024. It's absurd how we've had so many two-term presidencies in a row.
Yeah.
We've not had this many two-term presidents in the, let's call it, normal way of a candidate winning, where you have like a tallied popular vote and electoral college decided by state voters. This has not happened since the era of good feelings, when the electoral college was still just the electors voting mostly on their own or by district. But yeah, we had Jefferson followed by Madison followed by Monroe, and now we have Bush followed by Obama followed by Clinton followed by Bush followed by Obama, and now we're going to have Trump. I think this is going to be the first time in our history, as far as I can think of, again, that we've had 4 two-term presidents in a row. And just the way that the media lets the candidate who says the craziest thing dominate the headlines, it just sucks the oxygen out of the room. We had, the other joke about last night is we got to see Donald Trump win the Iowa caucus on the GOP side was 97, 96% of the vote.
Yeah.
And like, you had Mark Sanford running for a while. He dropped out in early December because he said with all the impeachment coverage, he couldn't find any traction.
Yeah.
Not that anyone would really care to vote for Mr. Sanford anyway, but
there was no Eugene McCarthy on the right this year.
No, but it's just the people always talk about history like it's this endearing force trying to usher us into a new era.
Yeah.
History is a bitch, and I say that as a compliment, because if you don't follow the lessons of history, you're doomed to repeat it.
This is true.
Yeah, and we have a system right now where we allow the incumbents to dominate the messaging and the narrative of a national campaign so much that the opposition party can never get their act together, barring like a massive economic downturn that undid George H.W. Bush in '92, to the point where the incumbent is so reinforced and the opposition so just void of any oxygen to get their candidate established, that it just helps the incumbent win every time.
Well, I mean, the problem is the centrality of the president in media narratives. And it's like, we're part of this here too. Like, I talk about presidential politics. I don't talk about local politics. I don't talk about, when I was in New York, I didn't talk to people about New York Senate races, and I didn't talk to people about, now that I'm in Texas, I don't talk to people about, the Austin City Council or the legislature. Like, and the reason that you do that, it's like Review Bra says, why don't you talk about like fancy restaurants and local steakhouses and stuff like that? And he says, well, I want the biggest audience possible, so I want to talk about fast food because that's what most people eat. It's like all over the country. It's supposed to be the largest possible audience. And I know that Review Bra has been having some health problems, so get better, dude. You're the best of us. But the centrality of the president, like, because the news media is built to cover reliable events. Like, obviously, you've got an organization that does like, video news packages. You've got a limited amount of cameramen. You've got a limited amount of reporters. You've got a limited amount of time each day. You've got to fill 24 hours of, content, which anybody that makes fucking YouTube stuff, you'll understand how hard it is to fill an hour or 45 minutes of content. That's a lot of work. You have to fill 24 every day. Like, that is a significant, burden of labor. And so these organizations are predisposed to covering events that they know are going to be, like, they know where and when they're going to happen, and they know that they're going to be newsworthy. So the presidency is the perfect object of news media attention, because presidents have to release their because they're public servants, technically, they have to release where they're going to be and what they're going to be doing. They have to tell the press what's going on, and they're constantly giving briefings and press conferences and speaking at events. And you have a camera crew in New York, LA, and Washington. You could cover all of that stuff without running around chasing your tail, trying to desperately fill those 24 hours. You could very easily fill those 24 hours, because politics is a whole bunch of people telling you, hey, I'm going to go do this newsworthy thing here, bring this amount of people, come talk to me. We'll get you we'll fill a couple hours there. And then the problem gets even worse when it's suddenly you've got, political representatives and people representing the various campaigns, surrogates, lobbyists, fucking intelligence people that just enter the commentariat world, that end up on CNN giving you the fucking nightmare NSA version of reality every day for hours a day. And the presidency has become this I'm not saying that a president isn't important, but I'm saying that a president has become, because of a bunch of systematic things that have to do with how the media works, and not necessarily how the presidency functions as an element of power on the world stage. Excuse me. The presidency has become so central in our media narratives that no matter who the president is, whether it's Obama, whether it's Clinton, they are so dominant and so central. They even appear when they're campaigning. They appear on Saturday Night Live. They show up on the talk shows. You can't get away from them, because they are kind of like the king of Television Mountain. When they're in office, they are at the head of the fucking media apparatus. And
it's gotten even more so after Obama, because he would appear on late night TV all the time. It's like he wanted to not just be the president of the United States and head of the Democratic Party. He wanted to be the king of pop culture.
Yeah, and the president, Trump is a pop culture figure too.
Yeah, but not to single out Obama, because we picked a reality TV star as president.
Yeah, we picked a cartoon character as president. You're welcome, America. 8chan, represent. But fucking the president has become so central in our media narratives that it's you're saying, we've got all these two-term presidencies, because once you get that power, nobody can compete with the president. In terms of the amount of coverage that you're going to reliably get, the president is always going to beat you, because the president is fucking the king of Television Mountain. All the cameras are directed at them. Everybody reacts to the president. And this is the thing, the Democrats are as much as I'm talking about how, in this election, I'm pulling for Sanders. I sympathize with the Bernie Sanders people, especially the younger people who are feeling very idealistically attached to him. I do not want their hopes to be dashed.
But politics is where hope goes to die.
Politics is where hope goes to die. That's very dark. It's very true. But the simple fact is, even before what happened in Iowa, these Democratic debates, these Democratic candidates, they are not getting the coverage that Trump gets. They are primarily reacting to Trump.
It's like a symbiotic relationship between Trump and the media. They love bashing him, he loves bashing them.
He's given them their reason to exist now, because the fucking subscription numbers are falling, advertisers are dropping out.
Yep.
The media is in a state of free fall and collapse, and now Trump has given them their reason to exist. They get to stand up and be sanctimonious and say, because what they are is a bunch of apparatchiks working for fucking corporations trying to sell you successively more expensive brands of poison until you die. That's what they are. But they get to stand up on a soapbox and pretend that they're fucking, holding power to account, because Power is now a reality TV show guy who acts like the fucking Monopoly man. He's a fucking caricature of a billionaire. He's Daddy Warbucks. And, the media is apparently completely incapable of actually holding Power to account, but they are definitely down for participating in this fucking wrestling shadow play of fighting with the winner of the WWE's Battle of the Billionaires, which, that's what they're doing. And they have this symbiotic relationship with Trump that is so fucking strong, and upon which both Trump and the media are so dependent that, none of these Democratic candidates, as much as, Bernie's out here talking about, policy stuff. And whether you agree with it or not, he's making, serious policy proposals. And I don't know how that gets air against the fucking Trump media conglomerate. I don't know how any of these people do. Like Klobuchar, fucking forget it. What, you're from the Midwest? Oh, great. Joe Biden? Oh, what's that? You're an old pedophile? I'm sorry. We already got one of those. He's in office right now. That's not fair. We don't have proof Joe Biden's a pedophile. He just likes to touch kids, but not in a under the clothes kind of way. Yeah, he likes it when black kids touch his hairy legs and it turns gold in the sun. Like, I don't know. I kind of want they make all these fucking dipshit fucking I hate Trump novelty books. The way that they made all these dipshit I hate Trump or I hate Nixon novelty books in the 70s and the 60s. Like
every 12 years, John Dean needs to continue his one-trick pony act by saying, no, this is worse than Watergate.
Yeah.
Now this is worse than Watergate.
Well, no. I'm talking about, there's this book that I see, when I go to Half Price Books, which is, The Wit and Wisdom of Donald Trump, where they take Trump speeches and they cut them up into poems. I want them to do that with Joe Biden as his mind dissolves, because he's got, a fucking Flowers for Algernon thing going on now. If you ever listen to him, ramble on the fucking campaign trail, it's like, you gotta play records for the kids, you gotta make sure the kids hear words. It's I don't know.
Yeah, like Joe, if you want to connect to your hipster Democratic Party social crowd, show off your vinyl collection if you have one.
Yeah, show off your vinyl collection. What do you got on vinyl, Joe? He's got the wreck of the old 97 on a 78 RPM disc. That's just one fucking thing. He listens to it every night when he takes the fucking teeth out of his head, but before his third amphetamine injection. He's so fucking, Joe Biden is so fucking decrepit, he needs amphetamine injections to go to sleep. He needs it. I've heard that. That's unnamed sources said that.
That was a funny moment last night where I feel like he might have been talking to a supporter who was on his right, or sorry, left on the stage or so, but from the angle, it looked like he had turned away from the crowd to talk directly to the American flag behind him.
I like that image. I like the idea of Joe Biden.
Are you talking to the flag? What are you doing here?
Maybe it's the ghost of George Washington is appearing to him. He's like, Joe, you need to drop out. You're fucking insane. He's like, no, George, I'm doing it.
I wish I could recall
Black
the name
kids
of the.
want to touch my hair.
Yeah. I wish I could recall the name of the supporter he was talking to off stage, because it'd be funny if it was. If his name was Sam and he was looking at the American flag and he thought he was being endorsed by Uncle Sam right then and there.
Uncle Sam. It's like Uncle Sam from the Alex Ross comic. Yeah. He's all fucking ragged. Yes. He's reaching out of the flag. Anyway, we've kind of gone off of the rail. Anyway, just to summarize, democracy is dead.
Not dead, just a little wounded, but Trump is going to win and we're all going to die.
Yeah, Trump's going to win. We're all going to die.
Die early. We're going to die early.
The coronavirus was genetically engineered to eliminate the poor.
Coronavirus.
The coronavirus. What did I say? Coronavirus. Yeah, the coronavirus was genetically engineered to eliminate the poor. The Democratic Party is run by flesh-eating reptilians.
The government incompetence theory is still alive.
Alex Jones is completely right about everything.
Oh, don't say that. I had to yell at you when you put Alex Jones on my computer for.
I love Big A.
I had to yell from my kitchen, turn that crap off.
Anyway, so I think we're gonna call it there. But thank you very much for joining us on this journey into madness and despair. And maybe we'll do it again after New Hampshire. What do you think, James?
I want the Texas primary to be competitive, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just bring it on home.
All right. Well, everybody, later on, check out encyclopedia.zone for the latest in literary shit posting. Go to patreon.com/HRC2020. If you like what we're doing here on this channel, really appreciate any donation you can make. Helps us keep making these things, maybe make them more frequent. Anyway, namaste. Fuck the Democratic Party.
Give him
Good
money.
night.